Welcome back to GMT. Let's take you to Iraq now. Protests against the government continue despite an overnight curfew in Baghdad. Protesters angry about corruption and unemployment. They've gathered in several parts of the city well after midnight, clashing with security forces using tear gas. More than 250 people have been killed across the country in two waves of protests this month. With me is our Arab Affairs analyst Yusuf Taha. So Yusuf, angry protesters defying a curfew. What's happening right now?
They are very angry. We had the first wave of protests beginning on the 1st of October, and so far about 271 people have been killed in those protests. And then we had over the weekend the organizers of the protests declaring a lull until the 1st of January next year to give the government an opportunity to come up with some measures to meet the protesters' demands. And their demands, of course, focus on three main things: jobs, fighting corruption, and better services. For example, in Basra, not long ago, we had several people dying and others injured because of contaminated drinking water. Now, this is in a country which is the second largest oil producer within the OPEC organization, with massive oil revenues, but they can't provide basic services such as drinking water.
And Yusuf, have the protesters now organized themselves so that they are a group with leadership, with ways of communicating with each other?
Not as such. There are no clear leaders because we had the organizers declaring that pause. However, the protests continue, and therefore there seems to be whether lack of communications or the protesters on the grounds not following the instructions from higher above, because the protesters are extremely frustrated. And the government, for example, they demanded the Prime Minister's resignation, but Mr. Adel Abdul Mahdi, what he said was that he cannot afford to resign because if he did, that would lead to chaos in Iraq, and therefore he said that he would shuffle his cabinet. This falls far short of the protesters' demands, and part of his measures as well is to dismiss many of the chiefs of police and replace them with new ones. But again, the protesters see this as just cosmetic changes.
Yeah, the protesters also saying he's part of an elite but is out of touch. Mr. Mahdi, has he made any other kind of promises to improve ordinary people's lives?
None yet. And part of the frustration as well, 3 days ago, the parliament was supposed to meet to discuss the protesters' demands and the government's response to those demands, but the parliament failed to meet because it did not reach a quorum. And protesters saying this parliament is just useless and they need tangible changes to offer jobs in Iraq. With all this oil wealth, 1 in 4 youth under the age of 25 is out of work, and 1 in 5 is below the poverty line in such a rich country.
Yusuf, good to have you with us. Thanks for telling us what is happening in Iraq right now.